What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 3 and Out YouTube page. I'm John Middlekauff, and we are talking football all day, every day. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends. Let's roll, baby. What is going on, everybody? John Middlekauff, 3 and Out podcast. How are we doing? Good. Because today, I just answered my own question. We have on my main man from the Action Network, Stuckey. You can follow him on Twitter at Stuckey2. He's a degenerate gambler. The college, the NFL. I think it's why we get along so well. We were just texting on Saturday night during week 0 of the college football season, but he's been coming on this show. I know we got a lot of new listeners or viewers over the last 3 years, and he will come on every Friday. I'll record with him on Thursday. It'll be out on Friday. We usually hit 2 or 3 of the big NFL matchups from a gambling perspective, as well as it's going to be one of the more interesting college football seasons. We will discuss that as well. So that will be every Friday. And the plan was to put this out later in the week. I was supposed to go to Nashville for some wedding preparations. I guess you got to do a little tasting at the venue. But that got canceled when our dog almost died. But luckily, she's tough SOB and fought off death. And now she's on the mend and spirits are high. So we're not going to Nashville. So I'll be around this week. And we will have podcasts definitely for the next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe not Friday because of the long weekend, but I definitely will have a reaction on Sunday on YouTube, and we'll put it on as a podcast to the USC LSU game, which is going down in Vegas. So we probably won't have anything Friday, but the game plan will be rocking and rolling full speed ahead, and something Sunday for sure, LSU USC, which Lincoln better buckle up, baby. So it's a big week, fun times. And if you like gambling, you'll like Stuckey, and that's what we talk about every single week. So before we dive in to the interview, listen, do you want to go to one of these games now that football's back, college, pro? Do you want to go to a concert? Do you want to go to a comedy show? Do you want to go out and enjoy yourself? And I say it all the time, but it's just a fact. Inflationary times are as real as, listen, I've been alive almost 40 years, never seen anything like this. And the lucky thing is, anytime you can save a little money, we're all jumping at it. I don't even need a thank you here. But if you want to go do something fun, save some money while you're at it, just Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Let's talk some football. Okay, back with my main man for the NFL season and college football season, who's fresh off a little trip to the French Riviera, living life, probably because he hammered so many bets that he nailed during the NCAA tournament. My main man, Stuckey from the Action Network. Big bets on campus. They know college football as well as anybody. Action Network podcast as well, hammering all things NFL. Stuckey, I have not talked to you since I hit one of the greatest bets of all time at the U.S. Open with my $150 parlay that turned into $19K Bryson DeChambeau. That was, I'm not going to lie, I've probably put in over the course of the last 3 months, maybe $1,000, like just over 10 tournaments, $100 parlays. I haven't even got remotely close to hitting it. So it might just be an all-time outlier, and I should just ride that one off to the sunset.
Quit while you're ahead. Yeah, I did see that. Congrats on that hit. Epic. The last time we talked on camera, the Super Bowl, fortunately, I went out on top because my pick for the Super Bowl was the 49ers first half because I was worried about the second half and Wilkes adjusting, and Wilkes no longer there. Didn't really make many adjustments. But I also mentioned on that podcast a bet that I made 150 to 1 to the game to go to double overtime. And it was one there. I was watching the play clock and they spotted the ball. So the clock, they had to run another play at the end of the first overtime. And that's when the Chiefs scored their touchdown. Oh, so close. I was on the floor watching that game.
How much did you sprinkle on that? Like $25?
I think I ended up getting, I had a couple other people bet it for me. I think I had like $100, just like $100 on it.
That
Would
would
have
have been a good
been a
one.
nice payday though. So yeah, epic Super Bowl. Sorry that your 49ers couldn't get the job done. Certainly in the news though. I mean, if I have to go on Twitter or and see one more thing, I'm sure you're as a 49ers fan, you're even more sick of it than me. See one more thing about Brandon Ayuk. Can we just find where he's going to go and settle this, please? And the Trent Williams news, and I'm sure you're sick of it by now as well.
Yeah, by the time people are listening to this, it'll probably, who knows, maybe he'll be
Yeah,
playing in
that's
the
true.
CFL. There is, I have, in the history of the league, I feel very confident about this. There has never been, and there never will be again, a GM. I mean, John Lynch had to come back from vacation in the summer. They met with him right before training camp. They've met with him. No one meets this often for a contract. I mean, this is insanity. Like
Every day. It's like, oh, it's close. We met.
I appreciate CD Lamb. Like, I'm not showing up till I got more money. It's very black and white. Or Jamar Chase, like, I ain't doing shit till you pay me, buddy. This is like, feels very junior high dating or something. Like, come on. I feel bad for John Lynch. I know he makes a lot of money. You don't sign up for, listen, you have to have a meeting every once in a while, but 35, this is the Cal Ripken record. It's never going to be touched. I mean, they've met 10 to, even Trent Williams, like, call me when you got 30 million on the table.
I'll be golfing. I think Trent Williams is golfing probably for that.
Yeah. But yeah, man, it's been looking back on that stretch. I know you're a Ravens guy, and that was obviously a pretty rough loss. Were the Chiefs dogs against the Bills as well in that divisional game? I think they were.
Yep.
Is that one of the greatest stretches when we look back of like, getting odds on a Tiger Woods or a Tom Brady or like a LeBron or Steph in their prime as dogs that we're ever going to see again? I mean, that's never happening like that again. I mean, 3 straight weeks, dogs, and some big time bettors clearly hammered the Chiefs. Now, granted, the Niner game could have gone either way. And even the Chiefs only scored 17 points against the Ravens, but still, they won all 3 games. And if you took a money line, you cashed all 3. I just don't think we're seeing anything like that again in our betting lives, or at least not for a while.
Yeah, Mahomes as a dog has always been just like free money. I've always said you got to be dumb not to take Mahomes. I didn't do it in the Super. I didn't fade him, so that's why I took first half. But I fell for it against the Ravens. I mean, I had the Ravens early number before that thing went from 3.5 to 6. And I'm still infuriated at that game plan by Todd Monken. But even if you look at like McDermott, one of the better defensive coordinators in the NFL, beat the Bills. I know they had injuries, and I know Miami had injuries, but Fangio, and then what McDonald did in that Ravens defense, that historic Ravens defense, and then beating the 49ers and Shanahan and that offense, that historic offense. It was an epic run. Never doubt Mahomes in the NFL, especially as an underdog. He gets it done again. So yeah, epic run. Yeah, we'll never see that again with Mahomes and Reed. And
no,
and look, if you look back at their Super Bowl runs, they just win close games because you have Mahomes. So if you get the ball late, you're probably going to score if you need to. You got Butker. If you need a clutch kick, you're probably going to get it, which you saw in the Super Bowl. Then you have Reed and Spagnuolo, one of the better defensive coordinators in the NFL. So adjustments, game plans, they have all those intangibles working for them. 26-12 in one possession game since 2020. That'll probably continue. Like you're going to win more close games than not. And that's what they've done in the playoffs against the better teams. You get the ball to Mahomes late. Look at that Bills game a couple years ago. Mahomes needs to go like 40 yards in 4 seconds, and then Butker needs to hit a long kick, and then they get the ball in overtime. They're going to score. A lot of parallels to Brady in those Patriots teams where they're going to win close games. They're always going to cover. If they were dogs, you would just take them. So credit to the Chiefs for getting it done again. They'll be hard to take out for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I got some listeners that are, 18 to 20 that probably don't remember the early Brady days, even the turn of the century in the late 2000s into the 2010s. Most of their games came down to the last 5 minutes.
Yep.
I mean, that's how most of this is not college football where you see Michigan beat the shit out of someone in a national championship or some of these playoff games that are blowouts. In the NFL, even if you have a dynasty, you go back to the 49ers dynasties of the 80s. I can't speak on the 70s, but these games are very close in the NFL. In the play, I'm talking the second round, the first round, let alone the Super Bowl. So we'll dive into the NFL, but you love college sports as much as anyone I know. College football this year, obviously a huge curveball. We got the playoffs. It's going to be interesting, right? Because some of these games, like Ohio State and Michigan over the course of the last however many, most of our adult life, a lot of times that game has been a make or break game. Now, maybe not this individual year, but some of these games aren't going to necessarily kill you if you each one-loss teams or both undefeated. But I think it makes gambling on, to win the national championship a little harder in the sense that before it was pretty clear, like 4 or 5 teams had a pretty good shot. Now it's like you see it with the NFL. If you don't win your conference, you got to play more games. It's football. I mean, you have a bad half, all of a sudden you lose. I looked at some of the future odds. Obviously, Georgia, Ohio State, and Oregon, pretty heavy favorites to win the national championship. But to me, one team that stood out is Penn State, because Drew Aller was, being a Philly guy, you are too. I'm not a Philly guy, but I know a lot of Philly people, Penn State guys. They were like, this is the next Josh Allen, the next Josh Allen. Mm-hmm. Then you watched, you're like, what the hell is going on here? Well, Penn State's got a lot of money. They hire Kansas as OC. Reading about that program, I think they're pretty bullish on maybe figuring some stuff out there. Their defense is pretty elite. Is that fair to say?
Yep.
22-1 to me, again, this is betting on him, but we have pretty recent sample size of quarterbacks, a lot of hype, maybe struggle year, then the next year in college, like all of a sudden they're a top 5 pick. So if you look at it like, is he the guy this year? Their defense is championship worthy. It's just going to come down to the offense. They invest in the OC. Of all the future bets, that was the one that I kind of had circled of. I view Penn State as a playoff team. And then if you view their quarterback, like if he does become a high-end NFL guy, even just a top, I would say 2-rounder, I would say the odds, that's pretty intriguing to me.
Yeah, the thing is that you'll have to get James Franklin to beat elite teams, which he hasn't been able to do, which you always have to bring up when talking about Penn State. His record against top 5, top
very
10,
fair,
has been brutal. The guy loves covering against Little Sisters of the Poor, but he has not fared well in elite games. Doesn't necessarily mean that he can't win it in the future, but it's definitely worth noting because I think coaching will be even more important going through the bracket of a college football playoff. You bring up a fair point. It's going to come down to Aller, and I think Penn State is probably going to make the college football playoff. One of my favorite bets is Michigan to miss the college football playoff. So, there's probably going to be a handful of teams. You assume Ohio State, Oregon are going to get there from the Big Ten. It's most likely going to be another team from the Big Ten. You might get 3, 4, 5 from the SEC. So that team and their favorite to get there is probably going to be Penn State, especially if Michigan doesn't get there. I just think they lost too much. I think the Minter loss is huge from a coordinator perspective. Michigan had 18 guys go to the combine, 13 get drafted, 7 in the top 100, and a couple other guys signed as undrafted free agents. And, their quarterback, I'm not sure you can throw it. Their offensive line. The offensive line lost 6 guys in the NFL. You ever hear of that? College team lose 6 guys? You only start 5.
Well, it's like when Matt Castle was the backup and got drafted. It's like that was the level. And they lost Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah. Harbaugh, you lose Harbaugh. And then I think the Minter loss is huge. And they were just such a well-schooled, well-schemed defense. It's kind of like that Ravens tree, which is taking over the NFL. You had the evolution from the cover 2 into the cover 3 Pete Carroll tree. You saw a lot of those coordinators still out there. They've evolved a bit. It's kind of like the Seahawks 49ers defensive tree. But now, offenses are always going to evolve. But now you're seeing this more Ravens tree. You have coordinators from the Ravens now in Tennessee, Miami. You have Minter out at the Chargers. You have McDonald now in Seattle. And it's kind of an evolved Fangio defense with just more, there's still going to be your 2 high shells, cover 3 quarters, mixed coverages, cloud coverages on the back end. But it's more evolved and more kind of fluid. So that's really interesting to watch. But I think Michigan will miss that from a game planning and scheming perspective. Bringing Martindale is one-trick pony. It's like, hey, we're going to blitz everybody. Penn State comes down to Al. I think Colt Nicky is, he's one of the best coordinators in college football. the way that he uses motion and deception is just at a next level. And he makes things so easy for the quarterback and so difficult for the defense. So like, I still think they need like an alpha to step up, but they spread the ball around. You can't, when you game plan for for Kansas, you couldn't focus on one guy. They're throwing to everyone, motion out of the backfield, the deception. So can Allar take that next step? Last year, if you look at his touchdown to interception ratio, it was elite, but he would never throw it downfield. They didn't do any, like they had just the most basic offense you could ever think of. And he's going to get NFL love. It's kind of like Will Levis. Like he's going to show up at the combine and everyone's going to be salivating over him, right? Like he looks the part. He has a rocket arm. He can make every throw. It just comes down to like processing and can he take that next step? And yeah, so I think that if you want to bet on Penn State to win the national title, I don't mind the bet to win the college football playoff either, but to win the national title, in order to get there, as you said, it comes down to Allar being elite. Maybe sprinkle some on him to win the Heisman as well, because if he's taken that next step and Penn State is good enough to win the national title, because I think it's clearly like Oregon, Georgia, Ohio State are the top tier. If Penn State gets into that tier, that means Allar has had a tremendous season and has exceeded all expectations. So maybe sprinkle some on the Heisman and Penn State if you're looking to get Penn State all the way up to that upper echelon.
There's a ton of buzz. I saw yesterday Kirby's like, this is the least, and it might just be coach speak, depth we've ever had. Clearly their high end's good, but with the portal, Ole Miss, portal king, plus 650 to win the SEC. Now, it would be they've just had the greatest 2-year stretch in the history of the program. They've never won back-to-back double-digit games. But I talked to a buddy in the NFL who went through the program. He's like, they are legitimately pretty stacked with dudes. Like, this feels like an LSU, Alabama, Florida in the old days. Like, this is a legit team. And the quarterback, who's now played a lot in Jackson Dart, is definitely an NFL guy and getting NFL buzz. Another guy that could really jolt himself up. Everyone and their mother's picking Georgia, rightfully so. I mean, they've dominated for a long time now. What do you think Ole Miss to win the SEC plus 650? Their schedule's not easy. I mean, they play Georgia, but some influx. I mean, Lane beat Brian Kelly last year, right? Alabama's little transitional year. I just think that if you are a believer in Ole Miss going to the playoffs, plus 650, because all you got to do is if they can just get to the championship game, right? And they would get a second shot at Georgia, even if they get beat in that first one, which I think they get them at home.
Yep.
Now, the problem with the SEC championship game, if you play Georgia, that's a, pretty big home game for them. So it is difficult. But I just think from an odds standpoint, that was one number that jumped out to me because LSU, little transitional year still, new quarterback, new coordinator. Alabama, you and I have been talking about DuBois for a long time. I mean, the Hainers, the Penix, he likes throwing quarterbacks. Milroe, I don't think that's his ideal type quarterback. What say you on that one?
Yeah, if you're going to bet, look, I mean, Ole Miss, if you look last year, they probably got a bit fortunate to win the number of games that they did. I mean, like if you go back to that Texas A&M game, they won by 3. Even Arkansas, they only beat by 7, 8, and they played a bunch of teams that had quarterback injuries. The LSU game was wild. I think it was.
What was the score on that?
55-49. Like, so they won all their coin flip games. And then if you look, when they played Georgia, they lost by 35. And when they played Alabama, they lost by 14. So like they were good, but they weren't on that next tier. So what do? They went into the portal, had the number 1 portal class. And I think they are getting closer. Where it matters is in the trenches. Like that's where Ole Miss has not been able to match up with the top tier teams, specifically in the SEC, is in the trenches. And, they've had skill position talent. Lane Kiffin is an unbelievable coach and play caller. But now I think they're getting closer. There's definitely a lot of uncertainty. Like they're going into the portal and just reloading every year. So what is that? It creates a lot of variance. Like how do all these pieces fit together, right? It's a lot of newness. So when you want to bet on that, there's more variance. You want to bet on the upside. So yeah, if you want to bet on Ole Miss, then you want to bet on them, to win a bet like you just said, plus 650 to win the SEC, because the talent is certainly there. They're getting much, much closer and closing that gap. And if all these transfer portal pieces come together, especially on defense, they're more well coached on defense now as well from a coordinator perspective. So they're closing that gap if the defense and the trenches are there and the transfer portal pieces get together. Yeah, they're right there. And like you said, they get to host Georgia. They won't be a huge underdog in that game. It's a game they certainly can win. I also don't mind, speaking of another team that brought in a really good transfer class, looking at some upside on Texas A&M, maybe to potentially make the college football playoff. We talked about this before the show. When do you want to bet these futures? You got to tie up your money for so long. The reason I bet Texas A&M to win the college football playoff, one, they have a ton of talent, and I think the coaching upgrade is huge. Bringing in Elko, Jimbo Fisher, he just had to go. It was just time, and he was running such an antiquated offense. They were so conservative, and so I think this is just going to be a much more serious team. They've always had talent. They still have a ton of talent. Can their quarterback stay healthy? They're due. They've had quarterback injuries for years. But the reason I bet Texas A&M is I think they beat Notre Dame in week 1, and that's a huge game. 2 playoff contenders.
Where is that game?
In Texas A&M and in College Station. If you look at Texas A&M's schedule, they have a really manageable road schedule, and all of their hardest games are at home. One of the best home field advantages in all of college football. So everyone, Missouri, Ole Miss, they miss a lot of they miss Georgia. So their schedule is very manageable, and they host Texas at the end of the year. Maybe be about a field goal underdog, and they host Notre Dame to start the year. Those are 2 huge games. I think they win that Notre Dame game, big resume boosting game, and that means that they're ahead of the curve. They win that game, and they look good. That price is going to come down. So that's one team that I wanted to bet to make the playoff before week 1. But speaking of when to bet, this is a new market. So to make the college football playoff, to miss the college football playoff, I assume this market's going to be up during the year. So it's a new market for odds makers too. So I think that there's going to be some opportunity, which we could talk about during the season, to bet some teams, to make the college football playoff after a loss, and figuring out that puzzle. That's what's going to make this more interesting, is these teams to make or miss the college football playoff in that market throughout the season, which I'm excited for.
Well, last year I think the Rams, when they were like 3-6. To make the playoffs, they were like 25 or 30 to 1 or, something outrageous. And obviously, that's the thing. Now, the odds on a blue blood program probably won't quite get to that, unless you're like 2-5, or something. All right. Yeah. But I'll lump Notre Dame in with the ACC schools. Obviously, Florida State gets DJU. You get Clemson, who doesn't mess with the portal, but he recruits well. At Miami, who landed a quarterback that everyone loves. He's got a lot of talent. The Cam Ward, they paid him a lot of money, but if you watch him in Washington State, which is a pretty good program, depends on the week you watched him. It was kind of all over the map. Yeah, but no one disputed his physics. Like, he's got NFL traits in Notre Dame. So Notre Dame, Miami, Clemson, Florida State. I mean, there's a chance 2 of those 4 of them get in the playoffs, right? If you assume 6, 7-ish SEC, Big Ten, maybe 2 of them, 1 Big 12, 1 of the random non-Power 5, which I'm even shocked that they allowed that. That feels like, my take on that would be like, yeah, a non-Power 5 team can get in, but you're not automatically in. That's how I would do it. And they would say, well, then we'll never get in. I would say bullshit, because you're going to have years when the Boise States or whoever have such a good year, they're going to get in. But I don't like automatically letting them in, because what if like a 9-3 Notre Dame or Miami that's clearly better than like whoever 11-1, you pick the team. It's like, give me a break. It's just not the same.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that if they had like a qualifier that, like, if the highest rated group of 5 team, if they're ranked inside this number, right? Because then that's kind of your quality qualifier.
So many of those programs don't have any big time wins. So it's like, how do I even compare them to like a 9-3 Miami who beat Notre Dame, or like not even comparable.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to see, the good thing is, which I think will hurt for this, if you're looking at the group of 5 market, if you're looking at, teams that are in the mix, you have like Boise State, Memphis. The good thing with those teams is Boise State and Memphis is like, Boise will play Oregon, Memphis will play Florida State. So that we'll see like them go up against power teams. The thing with Liberty last year and Liberty this year is they play nobody. right? So they could go like 11-1, 12-0. I mean, Liberty's schedule is Campbell, New Mexico State, UTEP, ECU, App State, FIU, Kennesaw, Jacksonville State, Middle Tennessee, UMass, Sam Houston. Like, so last year had a hell of a season. They went and played Oregon in a bowl game and they lost 45-6. So I think it's going to hurt them this year because people have that perception. And, once again, this year they don't play anybody. But so, yeah, I wouldn't mind that as well. I think, yeah, from that group that you mentioned, ACC champ's going to get in. Notre Dame, probably, their schedule is very favorable. If they win Texas, if they beat Texas A&M, which I don't think they're in, because I mean, I shouldn't say they're in, but they're going to be heavy favorites to get in because they'll be favored.
Do you like their quarterback situation, getting the Duke kid more than Sam Hartman last year, who kind of obviously once they started playing real teams kind of fell apart?
It's really interesting that if Notre Dame's going to have a really good defense, I think that Notre Dame Texas A&M game, look at that under. I know it's taking some money, but I still like it. If Hartman had, it's really weird because they just haven't been able to put it all together. Because they lost both tackles, they lost their tackles to the NFL, and then their tackle who was going to start on the left side is now out for the year.
Yeah,
they're probably starting a freshman. But if they had their tackles and from last year and their receivers from this year and Hartman, man, this would be a national title contender with that defense. So Leonard, he's not as good of a passer as Hartman, and he's not going to have as good as tackles, but he has better receivers. Like they went out in the portal and got some really good receivers. Last year, the receivers were bad. So, and Leonard can run better than Hartman, but Hartman's definitely a better passer. But he just didn't have the receivers last year to really get it done. But among that group, I'm not like Ward is too inconsistent. Mario Cristobal, hell of a recruiter, and that team is loaded with talent across the board on both sides. A little concerned about the secondary, but Cristobal's probably going to cost them a game or two. Like it's just what he does. Last year with Georgia Tech, didn't take a knee. That happened 5 years earlier when he was at Oregon. He didn't take a knee. Cost me money against Stanford, and they fumbled. Stanford got the ball with under a minute to go. They could have ran out the clock with just knees, and they ended up winning in overtime. Learn from your mistakes at least. So I don't trust him to win, to not drop a game or two. So that leads me, and with Florida State, DJU, I don't trust him. Florida State lost a lot of talent. They did have a good portal class, but I don't trust DJU to be that passer in known passing downs when the running game's not working, when the play action's not working, known third downs. I just don't think he's consistent enough of a passer. So I have some Clemson to win the ACC, Clemson to make the college football playoff. It's kind of the post hype of Garrett Riley. Right after his TCU, everyone's all in on Garrett Riley. With Klubnik, who has a ton of talent. It just didn't work. I mean, they had no explosiveness on the offense, but they did have a ton of injuries. I think the offensive line should be better. The weapons should be better. I love these two freshmen they brought in at wide receiver who could get playing time right away. And I think Riley with full offseason, can Klubnik take that next step? It's kind of similar question to what you have with Allar at Penn State, but the defense is going to be good. So yeah, I like Clemson. Mainly part of it is because I don't like some of the other teams in the ACC. So I sprinkled on them to make the playoff and then to win the ACC.
Okay, last question before we go to the NFL. Ohio State, I saw Urban say that he was talking with Tressel. He's like, this is probably the most talented team, top to bottom, they've had. Talked to an NFL buddy. He's like, listen, I'm not the biggest Will Howard guy, but he's definitely an upgrade over the guy last year. You get Chip in, who likes running the quarterback, what this guy can do, slow the game down a little bit, play a little less like they have, with the CJ Stroud and previously once Ryan Day got there, and just beat you up almost like a Georgia, Alabama. I mean, do you think Ohio State should and will win the national championship? I mean, just on talent alone, are they the best team?
Yeah, I think the thing is that Oregon is not too far away, and they're they have so much talent too, and they have a better quarterback situation with Dillon Gabriel. Maybe that's the difference. Like that game at Oregon, that's basically going to be a coin flip when Ohio State goes to Oregon. But both teams should make the college football playoff. The difference is that Ohio State defense is loaded under Jim Knowles with experience and talent. So yeah, I think overall, talent-wise, Ohio State probably leads the pack, but it's a clear 3-horse race with Ohio State, Georgia, and Oregon. And we'll see if there's another team from that second tier that can jump up, or maybe one of those teams takes a step back. And but those are the three most talented teams. I think I would probably classify Ohio State as number one in that department. It comes down to the quarterback. That's like I agree. Howard is an upgrade, but it's not like if they had a Dillon Gabriel, it would be a different story.
What's your take on Gabriel? Obviously, he was good last year. He's played a ton. Is it a little downgrade over Bo Nix, but their team is better? Or, obviously most people, I mean, to put up Bo Nix numbers feels a little outrageous, but I would imagine, I mean, this guy's played the last 2 years at Oklahoma, so he's used to the bright lights. I mean,
yeah, I think it gives them more plug. I think it gives them more upside passing, like downfield. Nix does very well. I mean, the short passing, using his legs, that's what Sean Payton's going to try to utilize, right? All of that. It's kind of like what he was trying to do with Wilson last year, but Nix actually isn't washed up with his legs, right? And he can move around. So he's probably going to do a lot of those same things that we saw. Gabriel, more competent, like downfield, aggressive passer. So yeah, I don't think it's much of a drop off, if at all. The question with Gabriel is the concussions. Can he stay healthy? He's suffered a couple. That's the only thing I would really worry about. But that Oregon team is loaded. That Ohio State at Oregon game is going to be awesome.
Okay, let's go to the National Football League. Just big picture. I was texting with a buddy on a really good NFC team, and he's like, I think the NFC is, because the last couple of years we leaned, the AFC was better, right? Quarterbacks, the depth of talent. I don't really see it there. To me, they're equals now. I'm not saying like that means the NFC is going to win the Super Bowl, but like as we saw, the Super Bowl, the NFC, when the Niners and Chiefs play, it's a fucking coin flip. But my point is, top to bottom, it's really hard to win the NFC. I mean, if these teams parlay what they did last year, the Packers and Lions stay good. Obviously, the Bears now, we know the Niners and Rams are good. The Eagles are loaded with talent. I don't think Dallas is necessarily, they might not be a 12-win team, but they definitely are a 9-win, 10-win team in my eyes. And I saw, just, and rightfully so, because the Chiefs constantly win the Super Bowl, on DraftKings, the AFC was like minus 140 or 135 to win the Super Bowl, and the NFC was plus 105. So if you go, well, if the NFC is just as good, like you're getting plus odds. What's your take overall on the conferences? Because I think where we stood, like, are the Ravens as good? Like, I think they're going to be good, but are they as good as they were last year? How can they be? Like, losing Mike McDonald's pretty big deal. I'm sorry. The guy was fucking nicknamed Boy Genius.
Huge deal. And it's going to help Seattle a lot, I think. And I also love that offensive coordinator hire that Seattle had. But yeah, I think that you're right. I think you can start with the NFC North and how much improved that division is. And you have 4 teams that are on the come up. I know the Vikings lost Cousins, who goes to the Falcons, who now makes them a more serious player, right? You look at the Falcons last year, the question was quarterback, right? And I mean, how many times did Desmond Ridder just here's the ball and cost them the game? So now you bring in Cousins, you draft Penix, so they're a much more serious contender. And yeah, but the NFC North, the Bears, the question was quarterback, and now you draft Caleb Williams, who has as much talent as any prospect we've seen. And look, the Packers saw what Jordan Love did in the second half of last year. The Lions are one of the best teams in the NFC. They're building out their roster. And the Vikings, from a coaching standpoint, I know the quarterback situation isn't great, but they're going to be in every game. Like, O'Connell's one of the best coaches in the NFL. Brian Flores, one of the best defensive coordinators. What he's doing, like I talked about the Fangio tree, now the McDonald tree. You saw the cover 3 tree. Flores is just a lone wolf. He is, I mean, last year, cover 2's dying. He led the league in cover 2. He led the league in cover 0. He would have the formations and exotic blitzes and looks that he was using to confuse opposing quarterbacks. That guy is a genius.
He might hate Tua, but he knows how to scheme defense.
Yes, he certainly does. And so, yeah, I mean, the Vikings won't be an easy out. So I think the Panthers won't be as bad as last year for sure. So yeah, I probably wouldn't tie up my money for that long on that bet, but yeah, I think that these conferences are now much closer to even. I don't think the Ravens are as good as the Ravens. That last year was the Ravens' year. I mean, you had Lamar Jackson MVP year. You had health, which they haven't had in the previous years on offense. I know they lost Keaton Mitchell, but pretty across the board, they were pretty healthy. And you had McDonald in that defense.
That
And now
stings.
I mean, that was that everything. They were the best team in the
They had
NFL,
they had
right?
killed the Niners on Christmas. I mean, that was a good
Yep.
matchup for them.
And yeah, it was everything was there, and the game plan against the Chiefs was just atrocious. They decided to wait. We're not going to run. We're not going to throw play action. We're going to turn Lamar into a drop back passer, even though the Chiefs have an elite pass D. And I think they overthought themselves. I don't know what they were doing, but the Ravens are not as good. Defensive staff losses, McDonald loss are big, and they even have some personnel losses that I think they could. The secondary is still going to be really good. You still have Roquan there. It's still going to be a really good defense, but it's not going to be as good as it was last year. Like the first defense in NFL history to lead the league in scoring takeaways and sacks. Not going to be that. And the offensive line, major question mark. The offensive line loses 3 starters. You're going to be relying on a couple of rookies, another guy with a position change. So I think they take a step back. The Bills take a step back. Bills, again, you could blame Mahomes. They had their window. It still cracked a little bit, but the last couple of years they were right in the mix and just couldn't get over the hump of the Chiefs. And now I think that they're going to be worse off. You lose talent at wide receiver, and on the defensive end, I'm really worried. You lose Milano now. Milano's hurt. He's the quarterback of that defense. You lose both your safeties, who are super important in a McDermott defense on the back end. It's more zone heavy, but there's safeties, and they had Poyer and Hyde there forever. We saw with the Bengals last year when their defense took a big step back after they lost their mainstays at safety. I think you're going to see a similar thing with the Bills this year. And now they have a couple of the guys they're relying on to step in are hurt. You might have Hamlin and Taylor Rapp starting week 1 at safety on the back end. That's not great. So I think the Bills also take a slight step back. So yeah, you have some of these AFC teams that I think are taking a slight step back. And the NFC, this is all cyclical. When teams are bad, they're going to get better draft picks and start building up their roster. So I would agree with you. I think these 2 conferences are much closer to even than they have been in previous years.
Okay, I want to hit you with a team that you like more than the market likes, and I'll start with mine. Everyone and their mother's picking Atlanta. Obviously, last week they add Judon, they add Justin Simmons. They've already put Penix on ice because they clearly don't want any controversy there. I think that's one's clear. The Saints, who went 9-8 last year. I think if you just polled the average fan, they'd be, won 6-7 games. They went 9-8. Now, granted, they got hot at the end, but Derek was an abomination the first half of the season. They add Kubiak from the Niners, who, I feel pretty confident when a McVay Kyle guy gets hired. We saw last year with Slowick. Like these guys, and especially someone whose dad, like this guy knows the offense like the back of his fucking hand. It's a family business. So their offense is going to be better. And I think their defense, I'm not trying to overreact to a preseason game, but they were good on defense last year. You watch their defense, like they're going to be good on defense. Plus 380 to win the division when, like, if they just got decent quarterback play last year in probably 50% of the games, they probably win 10, 11 games. Well, I think Derek's going to be much better this year in this offense, which is much, tailored to make it easier on quarterbacks. They have good offensive personnel. I mean, Taysom Hill's not a quarterback, but he's a good player. Olave, Kamara, like they got players. I like the Saints this year. Plus 380 to win the division, plus 170 to make the playoffs. Like I think they're going to be a factor. And I'm not acting like Atlanta's going to suck, but I am shorting them a little bit because I think a little like the Steelers, it just can get weird, and it can get weird fast when you got really famous quarterbacks making a lot of money. Now, Cousins is better than anything going on in Pittsburgh, obviously, but like they paid him a lot of money, and now he's got this guy who's going to resonate more with the younger players, who's a plug and play player. It's not like he's some. I just think that's got a situation to get weird. So I like the Saints this year.
Yeah, the reason I would disagree with you is number one, I 100% completely agree with you on the offense. Last year, very stale, no motion. Not enough play action. And now you bring in the Shanahan guy. It's going to be a much more helpful system for Carr and any quarterback. It's just going to be a more modern offense and harder to defend from a defensive perspective. So upgrade there. I'm not the biggest Dennis Allen believer as a head coach, really good defensive coordinator. You could say, look, you got Carr. You have arguably, as long as they stay healthy, a top 10 defense. You bring in a couple guys like Willie Gay, and the defense was really good last year. You have a really good secondary and aging defensive line, some questions there, but the defense is going to be above average. The question for me, so Dennis Allen good there with how he coaches his too high cover, man heavy defense. The question though for me, and Allen is 0-5 win totals going over, is the offensive line. And that really could hold everything back. You lost Pete. Ramczyk won't play for the season. Huge loss. So now, you're relying on a rookie left tackle. You're moving Trevor Penning over from left to right. I think he's a bust. We'll see if he can actually put it all together, especially in pass protection. So, and the rookie is playing left tackle, played right tackle in college. Penning, who's playing left tackle, is now going to try to play right tackle. So, you lost.
I think the rookie's a stud. It's hard. Left tackle's hard in the NFL. He's a good player.
Yeah, that will be big. I mean, the Lucas Patrick at guard is not good. So if he can hit, that will take him a long way, because what Carr needs is protection. Like, he has his offense. Carr is not going to beat you with his legs. And if you look at Carr's numbers, they're great when he has time, and they fall off a cliff when he's under pressure. He's not the most mobile guy. So can he get enough protection? Because last year he didn't, and the offensive line is worse. And last year he had a sprained AC joint, and he was hurt early in the season. He got another sprain. I think he sprained it again late in the season. He had a concussion. He was getting hurt all year. So can he stay upright and get enough protection for this offense to run? Because they have talented weapons. It'll be a much more well-schemed offense. That would be my only question. But I don't hate your trying to. If I had to bet a longer shot to win the division, because the Falcons, Judon and Simmons were big. So now they have two good safeties. They needed a pass rusher. They had none on the team, and that's what I would have done with a top 10 pick. You already signed Cousins. Like, why are you drafting Penix don't sign Cousins and draft Penix, or sign Cousins. Use that pick because you're a contender now. You're a favorite to win. Use that for a pass rusher, which you needed. So at least they addressed that. But there are questions. Is he going to be fully healthy, right? Older. They just think he just turned 36, coming off an Achilles injury. We don't know how that will impact him. So, they think that they're a tad overvalued. I think the Bucs take a step back. Baker Mayfield loses Canales. That was as good as you're going to see him. They were pretty fortunate in a number of metrics. I don't think that their offensive line still has questions, especially in the interior. So I think the Bucs take a step back. The Panthers will be better. If you're going to attack the Falcons, I think the Saints are the answer for the division, but I just worry about that offensive line. I think it ultimately might hold them back.
I think if there was a do-over of free agency, it would be Cousins signs with the Raiders and the Atlanta signs Wilkins. Like, they flip-flop those two moves.
Yeah, it would make sense for both teams.
You just put Penix in. He's the Atlanta Falcons quarterback. If I told you the Raiders had a healthy Cousins, they'd be a lot more interesting than their situation now. And that leads me to Denver, what's your take on just the overreaction? Are they better than people think? I mean, they're 6-1 to make the playoffs. I at first was high on the Chargers. They've had so many injuries, and at any moment, one of those D linemen can get hurt. I just don't know. I kind of waffle back and forth. I wonder if the AFC is a little more open at like the 6 and 7 seed, and it has been the last couple of years. Like, it's been a battle going into December. Not Penix, but Bo Nix, who has the longest odds of all the starters for the rookie class, right? Caleb, heavy favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Jaden, like 5-1. He opened at like 16, 17-1. Now I checked yesterday, it was down to 11-1, whereas 14-1 last week. So that number's been going down. He's just going to run his offense. And maybe their wide receivers aren't as bad as people the way you just casually talk. Defensively, it got a little better as the season went on. Still a question mark. I don't know. Their defense is not going to be great. But, what's your take on just the reaction to Denver? Here's the other thing. I don't care who you are, whether it's, your girlfriend, whether it's a boss or someone you work with. When you like the person you're with or working with, it makes life a little bit easier. Sean Payton hated Russell Wilson. Sean Payton really likes this guy. Like, that's worth something in my book.
Yeah, I mean, the Broncos, the problem is it's not a very talented roster overall. The defense improved. It was horrendous early. Then they benefited from just like a lot of turnovers, and it wasn't as good as the improvement was, but they definitely improved. I mean, it's hard not to. Bar was very low from early in the season when they gave up 70 points in a game. Just unheard of.
That was embarrassing.
Yeah. But I think the defense got worse. Like, just from a who they lost and who they didn't really bring in much. And they're still paying Russ a ton of money. So it's not like they improved a ton. You're hoping the quarterback play gets better. I think Nick's like what you're betting on there. Because I'm lower on the Chargers because I don't think that it's going to take. I like the Harbaugh hire, and I like Minter. I just don't think he has the pieces yet to run the defense how he wants to. Specifically, the defensive line, the secondary, the depth on that Chargers team too is bad. And you have a quarterback in Justin Herbert who's dealing with plantar fascia. That's going to be a lingering issue, and he has to be out or gets hurt, and it's going to impact how he moves, his plant maybe. It's a huge question because if he can't go for any stretch of time, you're down to East and Stick, which isn't great, and your pass catchers aren't great. And we saw how that offense worked last year when Allen and Williams were out. So I think the Chargers will be better off for that hire, but it's going to take a couple years to get that roster in the shape that Harbaugh wants it. So yeah, I think I like the Chargers under. If you could find like a under 9, I think is out there. I like that. What you're betting on with the Broncos is you're betting on Sean Payton, a lot of it. So, I mean, this is a guy that's never lost fewer than 7 games in his career, averaged 10.6 wins, over a 20-plus year stretch. So it's a guy who just knows how to win. I think Nix can run his offense. He's going to be just like kind of like a fresher version of what Russell Wilson gave them with more mobility and less washability. So I don't know. If you want to take a shot on them to make the playoffs, if I were to bet on one team in that division to win the division, it would probably be the Broncos. And what you're doing there, like, first of all, we just talked about this, betting against Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, never smart. And I think he's gone 9-2 to the over. And his when he's in Kansas City on the win total, 75% of the time in his career, Andy Reid to the over. The only 2 times they didn't go over, they lost by a half game. What you're betting on if you wanted to take a long shot is I think he would just take the longest shot in the division. And you're betting on, does Mahomes get hurt, right? And if he does,
Wentz.
The Chiefs season is not going to go according to plan. Then you probably want the longest odds in that division with the Broncos because the Raiders still have a lot of question marks with Minshew. I love Patrick Graham as a defensive coordinator. I think he's super underrated. That's why their defense was so good last year. What they didn't have, they spent the second fewest dollars on their defense, and they finished in the top 10 adjusted for schedule. He does so many good things, especially along that defensive line. This is a guy who was with Belichick, he's charting plays for years. Learned his system. He was under Spagnuolo. He was under Flores. Learned some quarters under Pettin. He has been under some smart defensive minds, and I think he's finally putting it all together. But
he's an Ivy League guy, isn't he? Like Harvard or Yale or one of those schools.
Smart dude, and so he raises add Wilkins. So I think their defense is a bit underrated, but their ceiling isn't very high. Broncos have more variance with Nix, and because we know what you have with Minshew, right? Like his peak is like he'll be an average at best quarterback. But Nix, he brings some upside and some variance because we don't know what it'll be. So if you wanted to bet on the Broncos, if you want to bet the win total over, Sean Payton's never lost fewer than 7 games. Just needs to get to 6. But I think betting on the upside of Denver, maybe to make the playoffs, I don't hate that bet at all.
Who are you higher on than most people?
The Panthers. That's sad to say out loud. But it was my favorite. We did our preseason podcast like after the draft on the Action Network podcast, and that was my favorite win total then. It was 4.5 then. It's up to 5.5. I still like it at 5.5. I think they upgraded on the offensive line, specifically at guard. Bryce Young, I don't think is the answer at quarterback. I just think he's too small, but he will be better than last year. And I think Canales will put him in better positions. The offense will be much better, similar to the Saints, just as far as play calling and scheme. And, you upgraded at receiver, I think, as well, especially if Leggett can give them something. But I like the scheme. It's going to be much more motion. Again, San Fran, LA tree here with the offense. And they're going to get Young on the move more often too with some boots. And that's what you got to do. You got to get him outside the pocket because he's not going to be able to sit in the pocket and carve up NFL defenses. So I think the offense improves. I mean, there's not much more. They didn't lead in the fourth quarter. One time. They had 2 wins. They won at the buzzer in both both times. Never had a lead in the fourth quarter. But they were unlucky, like across the board. Injuries, fumbles, special teams, you name it. They were unlucky. But I think they improved on the offense. The defense, it's not the most talented unit, but I think Evero, who comes from the Fangio tree, more cover 3 base. He's kind of like a hybrid of the San Fran and Fangio. I love him as a defensive coordinator. So I like the coaching. I think the Bucs take a step back as well. So yeah, I like the Panthers to go over their win total. They're probably the team that first came to mind when you said, who am I higher on than anyone? It was the Panthers. Sadly, the Carolina Panthers. I'll probably eat my words, but I like them week 1, 2, +4 against the Saints.
Okay, the NFC and AFC East, the Bills and Jets have the same odds to win the division. And I'm sorry, like I can't pick the Jets. Like, to me, that's kind of crazy. That feels like the Bills, and I understand where you're coming from. I actually think the Bills are going to be just fine. They're going to benefit. Their division sucks. I mean, Patriots are going to be terrible, right? I think the Dolphins got some pretty big question marks. Now Tyreek's dealing with some stuff with his thumb. I mean, you can't catch the ball if your thumb's fucked up. That's not something that just goes away. And even Mike McDaniel said, like, yeah, it's kind of one of those where you can't really do anything. You re-injure it. So that's something to monitor. And the Jets, to me, I mean, are just so dependent on these older guys that their injury history, the litany of, I mean, you just go through all of them. You just type in their name to Roto-World. They have years. And the quarterback's 40 years old. And listen, he's not playing in the last preseason game, or he didn't, if you're listening to this last weekend. But whenever I've seen a clip of him on NFL Network, I don't know if you've noticed this. And again, it's hard to tell, but I don't think Rodgers, one, he didn't move as well a couple years ago before the trade. Now coming off the Achilles, I think his days of being like the scramble king and throwing the dots, if he was like a 7 or 8 out of 10, what if that's like a 5 now? Like that changes. Is he just going to start playing like Peyton Manning? You know, not that he can't throw within the pocket, but part of his game has been this hybrid player. And if that's gone, to me, that immediately lowers their ceiling of, I think, what they were hoping to get before he hurt his Achilles. So, and then obviously the NFC East is, everyone thinks Dallas is just going to suck, and they draft and develop offensive linemen as good as anyone. So if you have a good offensive line, even if you got some random dudes on offense, CD thing will eventually get done. Ferguson's a good player. Like, you can find random running backs. I think Dallas is still going to be really competitive. Now, obviously, the Eagles roster is pretty legit. I mean, top to bottom, they got a lot of good players. But they have like 3 head coaches. Fangio doesn't have to listen to anybody. He's running the defense. The article basically said is like, Kellen, you do the offense and Nick kind of stay away from Jalen, and then Nick just kind of runs the team meetings. So obviously, to me, they're the most talented team in the division, but that's got potential to get weird. You're a Philly guy. You know that market. I don't think the Giants are any good, and Washington's a wild card, but I wonder if that division's a little closer, like it has been the last couple of years, then everyone just assumes Dallas is going to suck. What say you on that?
Yeah, AFC East first. Yeah, Patriots are going to be really bad. I mean, like their defense could have been good, but you're losing Belichick. You can't understate that just from a scheme and preparation perspective. That's a big loss. I know that he lost kind of his fastball as far as drafting, building a roster, even like the special teams fell off, but he could still game plan a defense. But then you lost Judon. Barmore's dealing with blood clots, your best defensive lineman. And the offense is going to be. I kind of like some of the things I've seen from Drake May, but who's blocking for him? Who's he throwing to? It's not the best situation for a rookie quarterback after he takes over from Brissett. They're going to be bad. The Dolphins, I mean, they really need to get like Chubb and Phillips and hope that they're healthy. They really need them from a pass rushing perspective. But yeah, I mean, the Jets are very difficult for me to project. Like I just throw my hands up and say, I don't know, because there's one, like you said, they need all of these. They revamped their offensive line, but guys who've dealt with a ton of injuries. You brought in Mike Williams. You want to talk about a guy who's dealt with a lot of injuries. And then Aaron Rodgers. And I don't, like, can they all stay healthy is number one. So the one thing that's working in their favor and works against the 49ers is you're going to get the best version of the Jets in week 1, right, when they're fully healthy. And they're getting the worst version of the 49ers. Like, is Ayuk going to play? Is Trent Williams going to play? Are they going to be ready to go?
McCaffrey.
Yeah. So, like, you're going to get the best. That helps them on the schedule. But I just don't know. I just don't know. I mean, the defense is going to be really good. You got like 6 or 7 former first rounders in the front 7, and then you have, three really good corners led by Sauce Gardner, but you also have Carter and Reed. They're really underrated. You can play that aggressive style that you do up front with your defensive line, just trying to get after quarterbacks because you know that your defense can hold up on the back end. We'll see what happens with Hassan Reddick replacing Huff. There's a lot of turmoil there because I think they could really use him. But the defense will be really good. I don't know if they'll be as good, and they got to stay as healthy. They were really healthy last year. But I just don't know with Rodgers because Rodgers, what I can say is that it would be this year or next. Like Rodgers is going to fall off a cliff, and he's dealing with that injury at his age. Is he going to fall? Does he have like one more good year in him? I don't know. Like it's very hard to predict when these quarterbacks who've been in the league forever, when they're just going to suddenly fall off a cliff. It happens rapidly. So I can't, like a couple years ago,
It happened to Roethlisberger. It happened to Breeze. It happened to Manning. It was just gone.
Yep. And so so there's definitely some downside risk with the Jets. The good thing is it can't get worse than last year at quarterback.
No.
Just with Rodgers running the show. But yeah, so there's the Jets are a very hard team for me to project because of the injuries. They need those guys to stay healthy. And I just don't know what Rodgers is going to be. And yeah, that kind of improvisation, is that still going to be there recovering from an injury? So yeah, they're difficult for me to project. And I think in the NFC East, a division that hasn't had a repeat winner in 20 years, which is insane. Cowboys miraculously win it last year. I think that the love has gone a little too far for the Eagles. They've taken a lot of money on their win total over the division odds. And the Cowboys, I still think they're a really good team. This is a team that's won 12 games 3 straight years. They've had a top 7 offense and defense, a top 10 special teams all 3 years. They just, in the playoffs, just haven't got it done. The offensive line, running back, it's more of a question than it has been in years past, but you're still going to have a good offense. You're still going to have a good defense. Zimmer is a good coordinator. Obviously CeeDee Lamb if he gets hurt, it's all bets are off. They need him. But he is an awesome weapon. So I think that the love has gone a little too far for the Eagles. If I were to bet someone to win the division, it'd probably be the Cowboys right now. I just can't get there with the Giants. Their cornerback, their defense is going to look like the Titans did last year. You bring in the Shane Bowen, who ran like an aggressive zone heavy defense. And yeah, you have your pass rush is really good. Your front 7 has a lot of talent. So did the Titans last year. Yeah, nothing in the secondary. The Titans had a bottom 3 pass D. That's going to happen again. Can't guard anyone. And their offensive line still a mess. And Daniel Jones, he's just not the answer. So I can't get to the Giants winning that division. And my take on Washington, I could be wrong, but I still have questions about their secondary too and their offensive line. Is I think Daniels he gets comparisons to a lot of quarterbacks. I think he's more like Fields than Lamar. Just from a passing perspective, if you look at some of his pressure to sack numbers, they're very alarming where he is like among college quarterbacks. He's in like that Sam Howell territory. So I don't see the compare. Like, I don't think he has the upside of Lamar. I think he's closer to like what Justin Fields is. So yeah, I think that the Eagles have quite, like, I want to see how their secondary comes together. They did address it, but it's a lot of young pieces. Who's going to play where? It's a complex defense that Fangio runs. A lot of times it takes time for that to work. I love the hire there, and I love the hire on the offensive side in Kellen Moore. It's going to be a much more modern offense, more motion, more play action, harder for defense to prepare for, but much more complex. It's going to take some time there. So, and you lost Kelsey in the middle. So, it might take some time for this Philly offense and defenses to come together. So, yeah, I would agree with you. I think that the hate for Dallas, I think, has gone a little too far. Still a really good team.
Hey, let's end on the player that everyone likes talking about because we have been for years, Caleb Williams. Heavy favorite to win the offensive rookie of the year. It's like I looked yesterday, it was like plus 175. If he has a great year, relative to rookie quarterbacks, how are they not pretty good? Because I'm not trying to overreact to Hard Knocks, but clearly their defense. I mean, Jalen Johnson's a stud. Their defensive line is going to be good. They have a defensive head coach. And offensively, you can't really argue. I mean, Keenan Allen, if he's on the field, is a stud. Rome's your 3rd wide receiver. And shit, DJ Moore would catch 85 balls if me or you were quarterback. And so you add Swift. Obviously, their offensive line's a little bit of a question mark. But to me, the comp for Caleb is much more like prime Russ. Can scramble, make plays, throw on the move to the left, to the right. He's kind of a playmaker, even if he's not, as of right now. We'll see if he can get there, a great quote-unquote pocket quarterback, but I think he's good enough. to me, the Bears are a pretty big wild card. You never know because once you start playing real games, they scheme against you. Maybe they rush you a little differently. But I think if he is just solid, the Bears are going to be pretty good.
Yeah, the thing is with the Bears, if you look at this offense, the offensive line definitely still has questions, especially in the interior. But I love the hire of Shane Waldron, who runs kind of like the Earhart Perkins offense. He has some influence. Remember, he started with the Patriots originally, and then some influence with the McVay type of offense. And so it's a really good, I think, offense to get your start with. He's going to make things easy for Caleb Williams, who then also is going to add his flair and his innovation when he's creating plays and creating with his legs and making spectacular throws. It's the conversation every analyst is going to say. It's can he just find that right mix, right? Of, going off script, staying on script, but, and making sure he doesn't get just too loose with the ball, trying to create too often. So you don't want to take that away from him. That's his best asset. But he's in a great position. He was drafted number 1 overall because the Panthers were so bad. Most quarterbacks drafted number 1 overall, right? Think about where Drake May went. That's the situation that you're walking into.
Jared Goff. I mean, usually you go to such shitty situations.
Yeah, and they were able to get Odunze. They were able to add Allen. You already had more. You have a really good tight end. The offensive line has questions, but it's better than it's been in years past. And you have a really good offensive coordinator. So yeah, he's in such a good position here. The division is tough. We already talked about, which is improving. But yeah, the Bears. I mean,
what's their over under?
I think 8.5, which is sky high for a rookie quarterback, which just shows you the situation that he's in. So yeah, they are the wild card in the NFC. Their defense did get a bit lucky in the second half of the year, but played some backup quarterbacks. Got some turnover luck. It wasn't as good. It was really bad early in the year, but you also have to remember they had a defensive coordinator who left abruptly. There was all that turmoil with him, and then Eberflus kind of took over the defense. He's still your cover 2 influence guy of the coordinators, or I know he's a head coach, and he brings in a defense coordinator from the Bills. I'm curious to see if he adds some wrinkles from the McDermott, Jim Johnson tree. But the Bears, their defense is still gonna be good. You got a lockdown corner. You have some talent on the back end. You went out and paid for your linebackers are good. You got Sweat. The rest of the defensive line, sort of questionable. But the defense is not going to hold them back. So if Caleb Williams can just come in and the schedule, the other thing is that I'm not talking about with the Bears, everything good situation for Caleb Williams. Well, how about the schedule? I mean, this is the first 11, 12 weeks are as easy as it gets. And if you look at the pass defenses that they're facing, it is as easy as you could possibly get for a rookie quarterback. Titans, Texans, Colts, bad pass D, Rams, Carolina, Jags, Washington, Arizona, New England, Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit. These teams, I mean, it's the NFL. You're going to play some good teams, but these aren't your strongest pass defenses in the NFL. So he has a nice opportunity to kind of ramp up and get used to this offense. So yeah, the Bears are definitely a wild card. They won 7 games last year, 2-6 in one possession games too. So ultimate wild card in the NFC, and they could be a player if Williams doesn't have. It's hard. Rookie quarterbacks, it's hard. You never know.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So it's hard to really I always have to.
No one saw CJ Stroud coming.
Yeah, or Bryce Young being that bad, right? So a lot of times it's the milliseconds of processing NFL defenses, and can you make those adjustments? Can you read the defenses which are constantly changing now on the back end, their coverages? That you just don't know. And going back to the Bo Nix thing, I wouldn't overreact to what you see in the preseason, not just for Nix, for anybody. It's just not the same. You're not playing the starters, you're not playing so a lot of this we don't know with rookie quarterbacks. But that adds some variance to the Bears, and yeah, they could be really good if Williams hits.
Okay, Stuckey, you're the man. I look forward to week 1, and it's always a good curveball. You get some things, especially you come out of left field on a couple that everyone, so I'm fired up for that. I haven't dove into the slate, at least relative to the lines yet, but we will do that, and I'll talk to you soon, man.
Absolutely. Well, good to be back and excited for the season. Let's do it.